Welcome to the Calm Analytics channel. I'm Boris Teisenghausen. August 5th. Today's top news at this moment, another massive shelling of Ukraine by the degenerates. The bulk of the missiles were aimed at Kyiv and the region, but I don't think many expected such a quantity today. It's just that there was already a massive ballistic missile attack recently. There was also a lot of ballistic activity tonight, and jet-powered drones were added to the mix. So it was, a somewhat unusual shelling, if you will. Although, can a ballistic missile attack be considered ordinary or extraordinary? Well, for Ukrainians, unfortunately, these are the realities now. This time there was a warning, but many did not expect such a large number of missiles so soon after the previous attack. It was quite loud here in Kyiv, but in general, it was a fairly serious strike. 24 ballistic missiles, 4 Zircons, 115 drones, a significant portion of which were jet-powered. As soon as the ballistic missiles stopped, the jet-powered drones started flying in. At this moment, 44 people are known to have been injured, and unfortunately, 17 people have died following today's shelling. My condolences to the families and loved ones, and a speedy recovery to those who were injured today. The main attack, the primary target of the attack, was the warehouse facilities of civilian enterprises. That is, strikes were also carried out on infrastructure facilities. On a railway station, several people died right on the platform today at the station near Brovary. Among the hit targets, which have absolutely nothing to do with the war, are a brewery, building materials warehouses, a ceramic tile production workshop, a Puma logistics hub, Intertop, and 2 epicenter facilities. And I came across a comment today. Well, you shouldn't have hit their Wildberries. And I would like to remind you that the attacks on Nova Poshta warehouses, on Rosetka, Silpo, and Epicenter warehouses are not a response to Wildberries at all. Russia has been striking civilian infrastructure for 5 years now. And strikes on the warehouses and logistics of Nova Poshta ATB happened last year and the year before last as well. For 3 winters in a row, Russia has been purposefully destroying our energy infrastructure. In the summer, it's the ports, the agricultural sector, shopping centers, and logistics. So what is the response to the strikes on energy infrastructure every winter? Simply for the fact that we exist, for the fact that Ukraine exists. And they do this simply because they are bastards. Simply because they have missiles and because they want to destroy us. That's all. There are no responses or hellos here. Yes, it certainly infuriates them when Ukraine starts striking back. As soon as things started hitting hard, they started howling in response, dug out all the ballistics they have, and are striking our warehouses. Right now, it's important for them to show that the response will be harsh, so they are throwing everything they have at us. I sincerely feel sorry right now, including for Ukrainian businesses, which are barely surviving during the war as it is, but are still operating. You know what I'll tell you? No one adapts as quickly to a situation as Ukrainians do. I think they will find a solution now. Many are already implementing this solution. They will fragment logistics, move warehouses outside the range of the ballistics. In general, they are adapting now. In Ukraine, this will be many times easier to do than in Russia. In Russia, it is practically impossible. There, first of all, the distances are gigantic, everything is centralized, and secondly, moving things abroad is a big problem due to sanctions. Remember how it was in the beginning with fuel, when in 2022 they bombed all our oil refineries? Ukraine restructured its logistics in such a way that we don't have oil refineries now, but we have fuel. And another question often appears in the comments: why doesn't Ukraine strike these ballistic missile launchers? Instead of Wildberries warehouses, strike the launchers, they write in the comments. Now I will tell you why. But for now, let me remind you, friends, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It is important. You can do it right now without delay. We are fighting against Putin's propaganda, against this rot, but together we will do it much more effectively. So subscribe, don't forget. So regarding why they don't strike the launches, they do strike them, they strike them quite a lot, but catching a launcher is much more difficult. A Wildberries warehouse, for example, is located at one point and won't run away anywhere. It's huge and it burns well. But the launches of the same Iskanders and other ballistic systems are mobile. That is, they are constantly changing their position. They can move along ordinary roads, drive out into forest belts, set up in field areas, or take up pre-prepared camouflaged positions, as they often do. After launching the missile, the crew, as usual, leaves the site within a few minutes, so the window for a retaliatory strike there is extremely small. Furthermore, these launches are often hidden in hangars. Some are rolled underground, hidden under all sorts of different industrial buildings or in special shelters, and then brought out for a short time before launching. In other words, catching this launcher and hitting it is not a very simple task. And it is clear that Russia makes extensive use of camouflage, decoy positions, and mock-ups. So, in order to strike a launcher, several conditions must be met simultaneously. That is, you need to detect it in real time, confirm its coordinates, and have a strike weapon ready so that you can just fire and have it fly off right now. And moreover, this strike weapon needs to reach its target quickly. And you have to manage to strike before the launcher changes its position. And here, by all parameters, Ukrainian ballistics are very much needed. Once it appears, the situation will change dramatically. Firepoint is promised for the autumn. There isn't much time left. Well, and Ukraine continues to defend itself, continues to strike deep into the Russian Federation, and does not give up. That's why the underground scum is so furious. In every episode, we have an important fundraiser for the defense forces of Ukraine. Today, we are starting a fundraiser for a pickup truck for the strike drone crew of the 26th Artillery Brigade, which is holding the defense in the Donetsk direction. The soldiers have recorded a video message for you. Please take a look.
Вітаємо! Ми бійці 26-ї окремої артилерійської бригади. Звертаємося до Бориса Тізенгаузена та вашої аудиторії з проханням допомогти зібрати кошти на авто для екіпажу ударних БПЛА. На жаль, на фронті автівки довго не живуть. Окупанти постійно полюють на них FPV-дронами. Будемо дуже вдячні Борису та кожному, хто підтримує наш збір. Кожна гривня – це внесок у нашу роботу, а значить, в нашу спільну боротьбу. Дякуємо за підтримку. Слава Україні!
Let's help our warriors so that the strike drones of the 26th Brigade can take out more occupiers. The link to the fundraiser is in the description of this video. There is Mono, Private, and PayPal for those who want to help from abroad, and a QR code in the corner for those watching me on other channels. In every episode, I say a special thank you to you for helping our warriors and supporting Ukraine during these difficult times. Well, and in Russia, the series of explosions continues. They are blowing up those involved in the war. In Russia today, the car of one of the most well-known Russian FPV drone developers of recent years was blown up. His name is, or rather was, Vladimir Tkachuk, the CEO of Ural drone plant and director of the production of drones called Upyr. You know, there's an interesting point here. The Upyr drones were named after their creator. This Tkachuk's nickname is Upyr, ghoul. Well, and he doesn't hide it. He signs off with it everywhere. The car was blown up in a settlement near Yekaterinburg. The explosive device was located under the undercarriage of the car. He sustained severe injuries and is in intensive care. So, this Tkachuk showed his drones directly to Putin personally, bragging about what a great guy he is, what a developer he is. Well, apparently he bragged a bit too much. Moreover, he also created a group on Telegram and vKontakte called Turned on War, Povernutie na Voin. Well, in general, it's all clear. Things started happening in clusters, don't you think? In Moscow, the commander of the aerospace forces and his entourage were taken out, and then just a couple of days later, another important figure. By the way, several days have already passed, and the commander of the aerospace forces, General Chaiko, still hasn't been shown to the public. Where is the general? Well, or at least a part of him. When I was gathering information about this character, I saw this text on one of the Russian websites about this ghoul. Vladimir Tkachuk, creator of the ghoul drone, which is called one of the best in Russia. Tkachuk set up production in Yekaterinburg after the start of the special military operation, and the first ghouls were sent to the SMO zone back in 2023. This is not a joke. That is exactly what it says. It's clear they meant drones, but one wants to say that the first ghouls were sent to the SMO zone back in 2022. It seems to me that not many from that first batch of ghouls are still alive. The GUAR informs on the territory of Russia in the Voronezh region, not far from the border with Ukraine, a North Korean missile unit is being deployed, which may begin launching ballistic strikes on Ukraine. This was reported to Reuters by GUR representative Andriy Chernyak. According to Ukrainian intelligence, a unit of about 90 North Korean soldiers is planned to be incorporated into Russia's 112th Missile Brigade. It may receive up to 120 KN-23 and KN-24 ballistic missiles, as well as 6 launchers. The final configuration of this grouping and the total number of missiles will be agreed upon during high-level negotiations, which are scheduled to take place next month. It seems that the nuclear-armed chubby Kim Jong Un has decided to just play with fire. I think an unidentified drone, even without a warhead, flying into the Ryongseong residence where the mommy's terrorist Kim Jong Un lives, would make this drone force him to run around a bit, dropping his burgers. That might just bring him back to reality a little bit. Another unhinged little dictator is growing up, and this one will definitely lose his mind in his old age, if he lives that long, of course. And earlier it was also reported that Pyongyang had already sent a new batch of 40 KN-23 and KN-24 missiles to Russia, along with maintenance personnel. It is likely that North Korean missiles from this very batch were used during the recent strikes on Ukraine. Do you see what kind of crap this is? This means we are no longer talking about the supply of North Korean weaponry, but about the direct participation of North Korean missile crews in the war against Ukraine. This is a new stage of military cooperation between Moscow and Pyongyang. Furthermore, the use of these KN-23 and KN-24 missiles allows the DPRK to obtain real data on the effectiveness of these missiles in combat conditions. Well, that is to say, this now definitely poses a potential threat not only to Ukraine, but also to the countries of East Asia. This is where South Korea, Japan, and, well, the US as an ally should probably get involved by now. For the first two, at the very least, this is a direct threat. Everything that is tested and proven here could later be fired at them. And it is clear that taking out North Korean crews along with their launchers is becoming one of the priority tasks. Publicly, it's unlikely that anyone will come out officially right now and tell Kim Jong Un, "We're going to turn you into King Kali." But through back channels and intermediaries, I think it's always possible to pass on a few kind words. In this case, it's even necessary. Well, and the Russians have had another Wildberries warehouse burned down. This is one of the largest Wildberries distribution centers, with an area of nearly 200,000 square meters. It is located in the city of Alexin in the Tula region and serves Moscow, as well as the Tula, Kaluga, Oryol, and neighboring regions. That's another few billion lost to the Russian Federation's economy and consequently to its military budget. I was thinking, if God forbid an apocalypse happens in the world, Ukrainians won't just survive, they'll teach others how to survive too, having gone through what is happening right now. I'm just, looking at the messages from tonight. The 15th ballistic missile is descending on Kyiv, the 20th ballistic missile, Zircons are flying, 10 jet drones are entering the region, and right then, a message appears. There is an ammonia leak in Kyiv, close your windows. At this time, ballistic missiles are rumbling outside the window. I mean, it's a night under ballistic missiles, and by morning, Ukrainians have already pulled themselves together, taken their kids to school, and gone to work. I iron people. In general, of course, this is absolutely not normal, but the world broke somewhere a long time ago. Instead of the whole world teaming up to crush one piece of underground scum like they did with Hitler back in the day, they're shaking his hands, inviting him to Anchorage, and rolling out the red carpet. You're just dealing with an ordinary serial killer, a coward, and a pomaded old man who's pumped himself full of Botox in pursuit of a long-lost youth. That's who he is. And because of one decrepit old man and this little group of psychopaths, millions of people are suffering. And the thing just won't die. Even if he does die, we probably won't find out about it for another 20 years. Over there in the Kremlin, they don't really bother much with these replicants that they periodically show to the Russian people. One can barely read from a piece of paper, while the next day another one is jumping around on stage, chirping without notes, waving his little hands. One is all chewed up, wrinkled, barely able to move his tongue, while the other, a couple of hours later, is smooth as a wax doll. By the way, there's another piece of news here that I couldn't pass by. The Pentagon is developing a new nuclear strategy in case of war with China or Russia. A new nuclear strategy is being developed at the US Department of Defense, which pays special attention to the possible use of shorter-range tactical nuclear weapons in the event of a regional war with China or Russia. 5 people familiar with the plan told NBC about this. And what kind of secret plan is this, that 5 people told NBC about it right away? The work is being overseen by Elbridge Colby, who is infamous in Ukraine. He is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Strategy and Force Development. He played a key role in blocking US military aid to Ukraine and in re-evaluating the American military presence in Europe. So, after all, if the strategy is being adjusted, does that mean Russia is the enemy if the strategy for launching nuclear strikes against both Russia and China is being revised again? And here is a question I have. Just how many great minds are working on a new strategy every time truly great minds? Billions are spent on various structures, on centers that produce simply tons of documents. And how is it that none of these great minds noticed, even though it didn't happen in a single moment, that the US effectively created its own main enemy with its own hands? Well, I'm talking about China right now. You yourselves brought technology, equipment, and management standards there, trained millions of specialists, integrated Chinese enterprises into global supply chains, and you continue to do so. And now it's too late. American business cannot move production back to the US. They played themselves. Well, and that bold galosh just won't calm down. Putin has replaced key commanders, and after the Ministry of Defense failed to keep its promises to quickly take the Donbas, he replaced the commanders of the center and east groups. And he still thinks that the problem is the commanders, the military leaders, and not the fact that he is simply an idiot. And here is another one, meaning his buddy from the ward and the cell will be soon. Lukashenko has ordered the creation of an absolute weapon that will shoot down all drones. What, create a Death Star or what? The quantum potato blaster? Can we just lock these crazy people up somewhere, this Kim Jong Un, Putin, Lukashenko? Can we lock them up somewhere so they can kill each other off on an island? I don't know. Or better yet, in prison, of course. The authorities of the Russian Federation want to transfer Russian post warehouses to the marketplace Wildberries. Bloomberg reports this. This is how officials want to support Wildberries, which has already lost more than 20% of its warehouse capacity. Guess what? Go ahead, hand over the Russian post warehouses. Guess what will happen to them the next day? Well, in the meantime, I came across another piece of news. After all, there are elections coming up soon in the Russian Federation. Putin's party is hitting a new low. A representative of United Russia called women inferior people. Well, we are talking about a State Duma deputy from the United Russia Party. They have one named Alexander Ilchakov. And on the air of the program, What Are We Waiting For yesterday, he stated that a woman without a man cannot be a complete person. Well, this is the same, by the way. Why did I pick this news? Because I've already come across this Ilchakov, a representative of Putin's United Russia Party, several times. In November, he was at the center of another scandal because he urged women to have children while, I quote, while the birthing mechanism is still working. There it is, the face of United Russia. But, I remember him for another phrase as well. There was some discussion about abortions, and he stated the following back then, and can you imagine that you, the president of the Russian Federation, could kill in your womb in the future? Aren't you allowing yourself too much? Actually, if someone had bumped off your current president, hundreds of thousands of lives would have been saved. Although, it's not about him, but about the system that gave birth to Putin. That is, if it hadn't been Putin, not this Putin, to be more precise, it would have been Mutin. This system that exists in the Russian Federation could only have given birth to such filth, only such a degenerate and maniac. Because what does the system consist of? Former Komsomol members, KGB agents, newly minted oligarchs, all these special services people, the military, although they all also came from the Komsomol and the KGB. So who could they have brought to power, all of them together? A Democrat who would suddenly decide to cancel the results of privatization when Russians were robbed and by the way, continue to be robbed by Putin's inner circle. Of course, a ghoulish system could only spawn a ghoul. But Ukraine will bury this ghoul and drive an aspen stake through it so that it never crawls out from under the ground again. Well, and you friends, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones. Subscribe to the channel, don't forget, and let's help our soldiers from the 26th Brigade. The link to the fundraiser is in the description of this video. Have a peaceful day, everyone, and glory to Ukraine.